Welcome, everyone. The instructions for exiting the building are to go out the door and back to the elevator, or use the area of refuge, or out the office side, following the signs. Any agenda changes? Okay. Open to the public for items not related to the agenda. Looks like we have a hand up. Ryan? Yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I was just wondering if I could hear everyone speak, because right now you, Jessica, are very loud, and I'm not sure I'll be able to hear the people I see on the far left of the screen. I can't see their faces either. Who's over there?
It's our speakers. Do you want to do a test speak?
Right. So you're gonna be speaking to this?
No, I think you're gonna be speaking to this.
It's
like
just project.
blue and that's what worked.
Oh, right.
Mm.
We can always move it.
Ryan, could you hear them?
Not clearly. I don't know if it could be on like a stool or a chair somewhere closer in between.
Yeah, we'll do that. Good. This is a good point.
Thanks, guys. And that was my only comment. I appreciate it.
Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, anyone in the room? Hearing none, we'll move on to announcements and staff report. Does anyone have any announcements? Any items from staff?
Not today, not additional, yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Then we are on to our Parks and Open Space Master Plan presentation from CRO. Is there anything Kelsey or Paul wanted to say before we got started with our presentation?
Sorry, we're promoting Carolyn to panelist so she can present her presentation. So this is the next sort of next round in what you've already heard over the summer from the same project from CRO. So Parks and Open Space Master Plans project. So again, two plans coming out of one project. This is an opportunity for CRO to come and present to you all what's been going on with their analysis, what draft recommendations they have for discussion with you all, and also to speak with you at your particular place in being the land use experts for the city of South Burlington. We have a community advisory group that is members of the community and also representation from committees. They've also been talking to various committees, the NRCC, Rec and Parks primarily. But the Planning Commission, as you know, is particularly well suited for kind of the intersection of different things when it comes to land use. And we have a discrete number of acres in the city, and you all know where housing is and where we've been planning for the different things to be happening into the future. And so you have a great opportunity to provide some thoughtful feedback that they're not going to be getting from anybody else. So that's the plan for today, is presenting some draft recommendations and having an opportunity for you all to provide some feedback.
I would like to emphasize the word draft. This is like our first try, I guess, of trying to make sure or trying to get everything that we've heard together over the last year into one space.
Yeah, so I'd say hot off the presses. We were working on it right up until 6:30, so we were resting when we came. So
Can I make one minor shift just
Yeah,
so the
please.
folks at home can see, because
Please.
you're being, it's gonna turn your angle a little bit.
Okay.
Pull back a little bit.
We can
There
see
you go, now you come
people raising their
forward.
hand.
There you go.
Thank you, Paul.
See us both.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And up the volume.
Bigger
Yeah.
and yell.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. But these are hot off the presses and even just, being worked on as we speak. But we are feeling really good about where we're at. One of the biggest, I would say, contributions from our last meeting with you all was the evolution of our future housing density map. And we've been working closely with Paul and Kelsey and your GIS team to kind of get a good representation of future density, and that's really informing a lot of the citywide and kind of area recommendations. We're going to focus primarily on those in this meeting just because there's a lot to cover, and those are the ones that really intersect with land use and future development. And so I'll just put that out there that we're really gonna, there are also recommendations for each specific park. And we're gonna focus more on the bigger citywide picture, and those things that really relate, towards, land use.
We have 49 slides to get through, but please do ask questions as we move along. And that's also why we decided not to do individual parks and open spaces tonight. So really quick, like just the structure that we're going to be presenting this information to you all tonight is we're going to start with citywide, like blanket citywide parks recommendations, followed by blanket citywide open space recommendations. And then we'll dive into categorized recommendations by like the density or like how dense an area is. So we'll do a consolidated recommendation for both parks and open spaces in high density areas, combined recommendations in medium density areas, and combined recommendations in low density areas. And then someday in the future, you'll see the individual park and open space recommendations, just not tonight. Just a quick note too, that like this whole project has been like approached and looked at through a lens of like the future of like what South Burlington will be. So please note that we've been like trying to consider like what the city is like looking to become with all its recommendations.
And really trying to tier to those short and medium term recommendation timeframe, and then the longer term recommendation timeframe from the city plan, the 2024 city plan.
So
Real quick, what do you consider short, medium, and long?
So just following the city plan from 2024
Okay,
has a short to medium, which is by 2030, and then a long term, which is 2050
okay,
planning horizon. So we just want to tier towards that. And there are targets, but just kind of roughly kind of a short to medium term, and then what are you kind of looking at into the future?
sweet, so let's dive right on into the park recommendations. Again, please chime in at any time. And again, these are super duper draft. Nothing is set in stone. This is just kind of like our preliminary ideas that we wanted to share with you at that higher level since y'all are the city planners. And the first one is increase parkland acreage across the city. We came up with the number of about 250 more acres by 2050. And that was used by comparing the 5 similar sized city that Adam had provided with us, as well as some of the national data. We thought that would be a good number to kind of catch you guys up, if you will, to some of your similar cities that you're aspiring to be, and also to help meet the demands of your current needs and your future needs. And we're also hoping that these can be focused on like the really high dense areas, which is going to be City Center, Kennedy Drive, and east of Shelburne Road. And we'll talk more about those high density areas later on in this presentation.
We also have some just guidelines around different areas of the city, high density, medium density, and low density. So we have some guidelines on how you might acquire or build new parks in each of those areas, as well as some specific, not quite neighborhoods, but similar, specific geographic area recommendations, and we'll look at those.
Yeah, we have a little example graphic that we'll show you here on this presentation for those guidelines based on park type. And similarly, just like blanket increase open space across the city as well. And to Drew's point, like less focus on like the amount of acres and just like more of a focus on like how can we get more humans to be closer to open spaces? Because it's important for mental health. Jazz. You guys have big questions on these first 2 recommendations?
I have a question about how you're presenting these. Are you presenting both your recommendations from your park study and your open space study kind of combined?
Nice, yes.
Okay,
And
and that's perfect. I just want to make sure we're kind of seeing both integrated.
there are some times where we're doing just parks, and then there'll be a section on just open spaces. This one in particular, we wanted to be on the same slide, even of, both parks and open spaces. There's a need to increase acreage for both and spaces. It's a little more important with open space, kind of where and what those values are in terms of connectivity, and it's a little bit less on pure acreage. Parklands too needs to be where it's at, but there is more of a specific need around acreage that we see kind of being below what you might see in the competitive set of communities. Whereas in open space, you're pretty high in that set, but there's just needs for specific resource protection, equity needs. It's a little bit less on, we need more acres of open space.
Sweet. We also think that would be super great for you guys to develop a master plan for each existing park. So the park master plan, the one that we're working on now, will offer like high level design concepts and suggestions for how each park can be improved or like rearranged to better serve like the current and future needs of everybody. But we think that like you guys could take like the next granular step further and create like individual plans for each existing park. That would just be, yeah, really helpful to get like 2-scale designs to depict locations or of existing or new facilities, construction documents, just to really set you guys up for success to move forward with some like physical improvements to your existing parks.
We're hopeful as the planning commission, you might know already that plans beget more plans. And so we do know that it takes an effort to put these together. So we recommend doing 1 or 2 a year. But that could be a next good follow-up to this overall system-wide plan. And maybe thinking about Red Rocks and veterans first, because there's already been quite a bit of thinking and some activity there. And so carrying on the momentum from this project into some park-specific master planning is one of our high-level recommendations.
This was another fun thing to just figure out like where the city could use new transit stops, looking at some of the GIS data that was sent our way. And that there's some opportunity to work with like RPC, not PRC, and Green Mountain Transit to figure out maybe some new bus lines with additional stops that are closer to parks, just to kind of increase like the equitable access to your parks.
Yeah, and so building on that goal, I think to have more bus stops generally in the city from the city plan. I think that stop interval is kind of picking that up, but also adding parks, stops at parks as well along the routes. So fitting them in as important points of interest on the route, their future routes.
Just a quick comment. I assume you take into account the complete overhaul of the Route 11 that happened last month.
If it was in the current, if it was in the GIS data that the city sent us, then yes, but I'm not sure if that was included. I'd have to check with our landscape designer.
Basically, one of our one of the routes that serves the city the most at 11 Airport is now the 11 City Connector, are they calling it now? So we should make sure that it's a bunch of areas that were served weren't served, and certain areas that were currently served. Yeah, just
That was Route 11.
Route 11, yeah. Essentially with funding cuts, they redid it, and it's been a good has had some good and some bad for the city. It's sort of just a few ways. That's all.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah.
Can I see you raise your hand? Sorry. Okay, cool. Maybe this is not also a surprise, but y'all need more parking for your parks to meet the current demand of your programs and events and just like people wanting to use them. And we anticipate that this need will just continue to increase as South Burlington continues to become a more population dense city. So we flagged veterans and Wheeler, Red Rocks, JC, and Szymanski's having particularly high needs, but each park could really use more parking. So that that will get into each individual park recommendation. We'll have a little bit more detail about that.
If they're well served by public transit by bus, you wouldn't need more parking.
Yep, and I think that like we're kind of
Take
trying
that
to,
into account.
yeah, we're trying to strike a balance of like transit stops, like bike ped infrastructure and connectivity, as well as as well as additional parking. I like especially like veterans and Wheeler and Szymanski, maybe not Szymanski, veterans and Wheeler for sure. Like I think that y'all are definitely gonna need more parking.
I
just
live
'cause-
almost in Wheeler. I've never seen that it requires more parking.
Well,
We've
the
heard
parking
the exact
issue
opposite.
is that veterans and Wheeler combined, because people are parking in the Wheeler dog lot park
Yeah.
and veterans. So addressing parking at one location, you really want to look at parking at both locations, and think about the.
Together.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
That's kind of where we have
Sorry.
the slash there, especially that it's kind of like a parking issue from veterans that's spilling over into Wheeler with the baseball. And so just think about the future parking, I think the solution wants to be combined. And I think particularly another recommendation follows having standard guidelines for each park type. And we'll look at those park definitions, which is a really handy part of this project that will kind of have shared definitions across the committees working throughout the city on the different park types and the guidelines that go with them. But all the parks that you see up there would be community parks or regional parks. You have less of a need for parking at neighborhood parks and pocket parks. And so the ones that we're identifying there have already existing parking issues or are more of those community or regional parks. we want to have less parking than you're even maybe, I mean, Baycrest is a good example, where it doesn't have a lot of parking. I think there's 2 spots on the road there, and it doesn't need a whole lot more. But maybe signing one of them as an accessible spot, for example. Um, Yeah.
We also think it would behoove y'all to evolve the relationship with schools to allow greater access to playgrounds, fields, and facilities. A lot of the schools in the city do have their own playgrounds and like tennis courts and other amenities that the public could access to help kind of, again, like achieve that city plan goal of having a quarter-mile access to facilities and just increasing the access to those in general. So just, yeah, a few ideas was like, allow the public to use the facilities like during the whole summer when school isn't in session. Maybe we can work with them to make the tennis courts that are at some of the schools like convertible to pickleball courts to help spread out that demand. And exploring a cost and resource sharing memorandum of understanding.
Can you slow down for us foreigners?
Yes, sorry.
Hey.
I get that from American people too.
Really importantly, we know that schools will not serve the needs that the city has at all times of year and at all times of day, and so it's not viable to rely solely on school facilities in some areas, but expanding the access in the times that you can be really valuable, and so that's the recommendation there. Sometimes it is a lot of work to manage an MOU between a school district and a city, but as the needs become higher, that's going to become more valuable time to invest in the shared facilities, like the school playground that's outside of this area. As city center develops more, it will have more pressure on it, but its availability will be about the same that it is today. And so stepping up and understanding with the schools can be really helpful.
Was there any discussion on also like for newer developments, like private developer created playgrounds, like trying to work to try and make those more accessible, but saying people at least one
We
was.
got many slides on that
But we
later.
have,
Okay.
we had two ones. Curious, one of them I think is real creative. Curious what y'all think, especially this group.
Well, that'll come after this, hopefully, which is no surprise, to build an indoor recreation center. I think that through our conversations with the advisory group and all the committees that like there's just enough space to meet the current demand and like definitely won't be enough space to meet the future demand. It sounds like it's just like a huge administrative burden on the Rec and Parks Committee to like move all the equipment around and also just like trying to find space to host all the programs, especially during inclement weather. So we just like really think that the quality of life for your residents will improve with additional access to indoor facilities. So just some things that we noticed that came out of the public engagement process was like potential facilities to include would be more court space, maybe some indoor fields, like a gym where you lift, and then a pool and other multi-purpose rooms. And possible next steps that we'll dive into a little bit more detail in the final plan report would just be to pursue a scoping study to build off of, I think, the project that you guys already did to determine possible locations, the building size, and which facilities to include. We personally think the malls are a contender for this, but there's a bunch of different ideas. I think that the mall could become.
In terms of location and future density, it could be a great location for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for taking notes, photos.
I'm sure they'll be packaging, just leaving up.
We have a representative from the Public Art Committee on the advisory group, and I don't know, we have worked with a bunch of committees or a bunch of communities around the country, and it's really cool to see when cities lean into public art. Like it has like all this slew of benefits for like community engagement, like just beautification of the spaces, and not to mention like the decreasing risk of like vandalism and graffiti. And we thought that like this one at JC was like a great start, but there's like tons of opportunities to expand these efforts into your other parks and maybe even just like other city public spaces. Yeah, like I mean, I love the little pencil thing y'all have out there, like right downstairs. It's so cute. So yeah, I think that's just like maybe some lower hanging fruit here to involve the community and get excited about these projects. We'll talk about UVM and the Winooski Valley Parks District, but focusing on UVM first, we think there are opportunities to increase public access to these properties and like considering how you're going to continue to work with them in the future. So the three big ones are Centennial Woods, Eastwoods, and the Horticultural Farm. And we'll talk about all three of these properties once we get into those like density area recommendations. But yeah, I think that like low hanging fruit again is like working with UVM to direct your citizens to Centennial and Eastwoods places for passive and trail-based recreation. This to me feels especially important because another thing that showed up really often in the public engagement process was people feel like there are not enough trails here in the city. So maybe we can direct more people to the UVM ones. We also think that as the university apparently has some like future super down the road, decades from now, plans to maybe build additional student housing or other like campus buildings on the horticultural farm. And if that happens, like I feel like there's opportunity for the city to work with them to like mandate like set asides for like public open space. And we can talk more about like how that fits into everything.
Is that something that they communicated to you?
Yes, I met with UVM 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I mean, I feel like they have
Oh,
that.
that's great,
intention
just
for
want
all
to
of
make
their
sure that
properties.
that
Yes.
your source is them on it.
Yes, their planning department, to be specific. I didn't really have a plan.
Our thought is just as things are proposed with UVM, that's a negotiation point that the city could look to get. If they're asking for things from the city, increased public access to some of these parcels, and use may be of value.
So it looks like we have a question from the audience. Lisa?
Hi, this is Lisa Kingsbury. I'm the Associate Director of Planning at UVM. And Carolyn, I think we may have had a miscommunication there.
Lisa, I'm so sorry if I.
That's okay. That's okay. It was it was a quick meeting, pretty high level conversation. I do want to know the way that you've written this in the slide that, the university, and we've always said this, that we sort of accumulated land in South Burlington over decades with the thought that if there's a possibility that expansion could happen in those lands, we don't have any plans for that at this moment. And we do not have any plans to put housing on the Hort Farm right now. So
Okay, I must have missed
I'm not
it.
sure where that one came from, but I just want to clarify that.
No, thank you. I'm sorry. And thank
No,
you
that's okay.
for correcting me.
And thanks, Lisa. Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, never mind. So we'll delete that. And again, emphasis on draft recommendations. Here we are. Okay, great. So I think that there's still opportunities to work with the UVM though for in the future. Yeah.
And I think, UVM has been a great partner and does have a lot of land. So, I mean, it's great you've started some conversations.
No, great. And Lisa and I had a great meeting with her partner Claire as well, our associate Claire, just to kind of get an idea of like, I didn't know, for example, that like Centennial Woods had like there's like a big part, like Centennial Woods is a whole thing. And then there's only like one part that's the Centennial Woods like natural area that can allow trails. So it's like that will make that distinction in this plan as well. Lisa, I would be curious. Sorry, I think it's important for us to like have you review and UVM language in these plans too. So I'll hit you up like once these get a little bit more refined.
We did turn her off, but now she.
That's okay.
But you can go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, thank you. No, we would love to continue the conversation, and I would agree. I think that the city of South Burlington, the staff, the planning commission, and UVM, we have good conversations together, and we're happy to explore more opportunities. I just didn't want that statement about housing on the Hort Farm to stay out there because it's not something we're planning to do. But we're certainly welcome to open to more conversations with Carolyn and her team and also with you all. So thank you.
Thank you.
Shifting gears a little bit to the WVPD properties, the lands on, I also met with these guys a little bit ago, but the lands that they manage in South Burlington are Muddy Brook Park, Valley Ridge, and the Winooski Bridge National Area. Those are the ones that the public are allowed on. The ones that they are not allowed on are the Muddy Brook Wetland Preserve, and that's to preserve the wetland ecosystems there. But yeah, like similar to what we said for like Eastwoods, Centennial Woods, and the Hort Farm, just like how can we utilize or how can we direct more traffic to the publicly available parcels that WVPD manages. And when I met with them, they also mentioned, I guess I just didn't know that they had like a formal relationship with the city already for some trail maintenance and on city-owned properties, and I thought that it would be important to maybe continue that relationship and to expand additional or to explore additional opportunities for collaboration, especially they can like reduce the burden on some like city staff or committees. And we can talk more about like trail maintenance and invasive management in the future, but I just thought that that could be like a helpful resource moving forward.
I have a question for staff. Is that my Valley Ridge, like where I live?
Yes,
There's
right behind you,
there's public land behind.
between where the Valley Ridge neighborhood and the Winooski River
Oh,
is
interesting.
owned by Winooski Valley Parks District.
Cause there's not, as far as I know, there's no access back there. Do we
I'm not aware that there are trails there. I think from Winooski Valley Parks District's long-term
Yeah,
visioning, they envision the idea of being able to connect to Centennial Woods eventually and all that kind of work. And of course, that's partnership with UVM as well as them, but I don't know that there is much in the way of public
Yeah,
access today, but it is a public.
cause the other two have established trails and parking and
Yeah.
like, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, their WVPD let me know that they're actively developing their first ever strategic plan right now. So I feel like it's just a great timing to like have conversations with them about how to collaborate in the future. So
I added that last one there about regional partnerships, just thinking that that's the entity that manages parks across communities in Chittenden County. Especially as you get closer to that 2050 and more of a build-out of the city. I think those regional parks are gonna become even more important across Burlington, South Burlington, and Williston. And so looking at as they do strategic planning, trying to partner through the region through that entity.
yeah, like a high level example is like the Burlington Wildways. I know that's like the Burlington Wildways, but it maybe could become like regional wildways, and then you can work with them to connect all the trails that they already connected in Burlington to South Burlington. I don't know, fun stuff.
I mean, on that note, was there anything else like beyond just the wild ways, like doing that approach like some of our parks as well? Like I'm sort of thinking of something like the town of Middlebury, an hour south of here. It has a bunch of parcels, and they sort of link together a lot of the trail in Middlebury. Yeah, like if there's potential opportunities to do sort of a way, like in some cases we go on a road, but sort of like, oh, here's the East South Burlington Trail or some better name for it, to like link up these parks and say, hey, do these, and you can do this like string together like 3 different parks at once or whatever with the rec paths and stuff. I'm curious if that might along the lines of what they're doing, the Winooski Valley Wildways and other areas of park too. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
complete out left field, but
Absolutely, I mean, your bike path network is connects in with Burlington's, and
Mhm.
both connect a lot of parks together. I think Williston is developing their bike path network towards yours as well,
Mhm.
that's connecting a lot of their parks. So once that's connected, there's kind of regional, and Burlington's goes into Colchester, into their park system, so there starts to be a really connect, especially with the rec path system.
yeah.
And I think there is one, I think where we mentioned partnering with CCRPC, but that might be a good partner around trail connectivity. But I think thinking about that, we might actually, depending on how you all feel, we might actually can make a whole slide about regional kind of partnerships and talk about trail connectivity and Winooski Valley Parks District and CCRPC. That's a great idea.
Sorry, I'm just writing this down on my
I
phone.
love that con.
Yeah, and I guess I think not just necessarily limited to the bike paths too. Like so, oh hey, here's so much like more kind of informal, rougher paths, they're like foot paths only that you might have to link together through bike paths or something. So maybe different kinds of networking possible. Like in the trail around Middlebury, sometimes it's on a road, sometimes it's like practically walking up a mountain. It can be a lot of different things. It's more just trying to with signage, like point people, because I know there's a lot of cool little hidden trails around the kind of city that I think a lot of people don't realize exist at the moment. You guys probably do, but the public doesn't.
Yeah.
We've got a few like mentions about like bike path connectivity like throughout these recommendations, and I think that your point is great that maybe we can like consolidate like both regional collaboration opportunities as well as like connectivity.
And it could look like probably bike path and like the Wild Ways or trail around Middlebury, kind of mixed surface connectivity
Yeah,
as well.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it gets to Michael's point too of, if you have a whole one about parking, it'd be nice to have a whole one about connectivity and like, you know, how we can get
We might
between.
actually
do.
later, yeah, sorry.
Oh, we're just jumping ahead.
Yeah, no,
Are you
kind
covering
of
the 35 miles that they have at Middlebury and the trails that are handled by the local? land
Yeah,
trust?
yeah, in that case, that's not municipal, but yes, it's just an example of a system where it's one sort of a bunch, it's a land trust, but it's a bunch of different parks that are owned by various different entities. But there's one sort of continual blazing system and a map that sort of shows all of the ones and shows, hey, here's the roadblocks you do to connect these. So it's very helpful to
Yeah.
teaching people to how to connect different parcels
They
in one
always
sort of
maintain that 35 miles is about 100,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a variety of people maintaining the network. Like some it's the college that maintain there's some that I think is city. It's a mixture of sources.
There's the Middlebury mountain bike chapter.
Yeah.
And just and some of them are in the town forest. I think there's 4 town forests in
Yeah.
Middlebury. So some of those trails are maintained by the town, depending on where it is, so
But-
they're all contributing to that total
Yeah.
maintenance cost.
I mean, the nice thing is, yeah, but from the resident or visitor to a town, they see, oh, Trail of Misery, follow this blaze color, and you'll link together like 6 different properties if you want to, that kind of thing. It's just it's a very seamless experience for the public, even if the behind the scenes is kind of a lot of different collaboration, which is cool, in my opinion.
We like it. Yeah, we are big fans of the trip around Middlebury.
Yep.
So speaking to your earlier point, we thought there's some opportunity to work with like housing associations and other developments to establish public use of existing open space set-asides. So like you guys could explore opportunities to negotiate for city ownership and full public access in exchange for long-term city maintenance and enhancement. It was like an idea that we had. I
This is the
mean,
one where, we think the next one talks about future development and that you can have policy that has set aside and you can adjust that. This is trying to look at places like playgrounds at existing condo developments or set asides and thinking if there's an opportunity to negotiate with those private entities to take over management and maintenance of those playgrounds or of those facilities in exchange for full and city ownership and public access.
yeah, like the Queen City has like their cute little tiny play structure and like basketball court is like an example. So maybe that could be something the city maybe eventually owns and then upgrades to serve additional humans is kind of like the vibe we have there. And I see that Brian has a hand raised also.
We could do that.
Oh, sorry.
I think we're originally thinking about holding questions then, but
Oh,
we
that's
have
fine.
been interjecting and we did have Lisa go, so.
I'm wondering
We
if
could-
Chris was responding directly to a
Yeah.
comment about UVM. She's a UVM planner. So that's up to you.
Sorry, whatever you guys want to do.
No, I know you just said 49 slides, which makes me
Yeah,
very nervous.
fair enough.
Maybe Ray, if you could hold some questions to the end, like for people, non-commissioners, just to be able to try to get through.
Sorry for.
No, that's totally fine.
One quick question on this. A lot of PUDs that came before us on the DRB, there's civic spaces that they have to set aside and all that, that's all open to the public, correct? Not necessarily. So for example, Brian Eastview, a fairly recent one, has some that are specifically intended to be open to the public. Well, publicly owned, I guess is a better way to describe it. Others are up to the HOA to decide how they want to do it, so there's no permit condition on the private ones that they must be public.
Okay, because I was under the impression, because a lot of the, like the approvals that we gave to buildings around here. Or over where the old theater used to be, where they're building, I forget who the developer, Larkin maybe. Is building that out. There are lots of like park spaces and things that we looked at and we never had any conversations about them being restricted to residents only. Right. But we're saying that they have the ability to restrict those, because they seem to be open green spaces. Right. I'm just wondering if they're making these as part of PUDs, if they're not gating it off, if they don't have the ability to do that, then it seems like we should be including that in available parks for heat maps and those sorts of things, because they're setting aside a certain amount of open space for
So I
civic
think that
space.
there's a couple of pieces in that. One is, and I think maybe this is coming as a part of the recommendations that are here, certainly Adam and this group been looking at it, about when does the city, what kind of guidance do we want to help give the DRB about when it should be public
Mhm.
versus private? And then in the private, you're right, I mean, I think that there are examples all around city center where there's areas that are welcoming to all.
Right.
But another example might be a neighborhood would have a tennis court and, it's locked. And
Right.
that's definitely just for the people who live there. It might be an amenity for them. And then there's everything in between, which
Right.
doesn't have a lot of legal clarity.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Cause I know, and this may be a point of, we're getting off here, but when we were approving things as civic spaces, there was no, okay, this is locked for our residents. It was a parklet or a park or something like that, that they were putting in bike path connectivity, which obviously was assumed to be open to the general public. So a lot of that stuff, at least from a DRB standpoint, I mean, we were not looking at that as private amenity.
Right.
It was public amenity.
And
So if that's questionable, yeah, it is something that we ought to.
Yeah, and I think that,
Clarify.
using Eastview as an example again, I think they were fairly clear that the area immediately around the barn was gonna be just for residents. They
Mhm.
talked about it as being just for residents. This is an amenity for the residents. Then the other ones, they talked about being general. So I think that is an opportunity both on the planning side, on the development review side, to make sure that expectations are clear from the beginning and everybody knows what's what.
And then those spaces should be included with the
Yes,
future development as, hey, they've got their own parks and.
we did map things like the playgrounds that are owned by private HOAs, and we've mapped the things that are parks, public parks as well, that were set asides. I think in this recommendation, we're looking at, this is a negotiation piece, and maybe the HOA wants to not change it the way it is today at all, but there could be opportunities, especially as the city becomes more dense, is really us trying to find every opportunity you can to add public amenities as the city densifies. And this is one strategy we thought of. There are a few of those, like the basketball court at Queen City, where maybe it can get some more investment from the city, but in exchange for full public ownership and access. It would still be an amenity for that local community, but could serve, a few more residents. These are probably not going to be your new regional playgrounds. These are still going to be, neighborhood playgrounds. But they could have a little bit more investment and access. I would also note, particularly this recommendation is totally new, so Adam hasn't chimed in on this one yet. I don't know how he feels about taking over various playgrounds, but is an idea that we've had that it could be a way to, and this is really our strategy, is to find every way you can get new parkland in the most dense areas as you develop, is one of our goals here. And this one, I think, goes along with that, is looking at the future policies for civic and site amenities with development. And I know there's always some negotiation and some review with the developer through the development review board, but looking to have more of those areas that really do guarantee public access to those set asides. And if the development is more dense, it's going to have a higher need for more of that than a smaller development as well. I wonder, especially around this one, I'm curious, I think this is an area where the city has done a lot of work around development review and some of those policies. How much do you want us to go into suggesting changes to those policies?
That was a beefy document you sent me of existing subdivision policies. But I did summarize it. I am gonna include that summary in this plan. But I guess it's like, yeah, like how deep do you guys want us to go with that?
Because we can be a little bit more goal oriented or a little bit more specific on what changes might be to that.
That's a good question. I don't think we're expecting to write new policies, but if you have ideas that, I think you just brought up some really good ones from your experience, John, like, and maybe it's a conversation for us to have, like, are we expecting those civic spaces to become public or not? And like, is it still fine for yeah, like how are we expecting that breakdown to be, you know? And do we need to be giving some kind of guidelines? So I don't know if we need you to write anything, but it's maybe a thing to revisit at some point.
I think it's another thing and you'll get into this later, I know, because we've talked about it, but when you're looking at siting and location, like, and Paul's, you know, talking about a whole range of things that a civic space can be, from completely open and public to completely locked, and there's a whole thing, and something in between is just deep in a neighborhood, so like just not on the main road, so that's something that sort of makes it more for a neighborhood, more for neighborhood use than for true public use, even if it's open, so I would love to see if you have any recommendations about, like, if you're planning to have this large development, count the civic space of a large development towards our open space goals, like it should be closer to the main roads, it should be, you know, like some recommendations for what those civic spaces should include, where they should be located, all that sort of stuff. If we're going to be considering it a quasi-public asset.
Yeah.
To expand, open spaces and public parks, that there is suitable land all over South Burlington, and maybe the policy should be that the city should acquire that land if they have a willing seller. And maybe use open space funds for that, if it's going to be used as a park or an open space.
Yeah.
We do see a need for kind of acquiring new parkland throughout the city, but not necessarily ubiquitously across the city. And we'll get into that.
In the areas of the city that aren't well served, absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely all ears if there's specific recommendations towards ways of ensuring that these like civic spaces are serving the greater population, not just the development. And let's be realistic, these things probably will be mostly used by members of development, but just sort of a way to maximize the kind of value to the community as a whole. I guess the way I kind of think of almost as like, think more as in like, what are specific use cases where you would want to ban the public? Let's say like you said, tennis court, like, or a swimming pool. I see that they would not want those be public spaces. They have compelling reasons not to. But you can't have like a really strong reason to like say we should have this be residents only. By default, it should be trying to serve the public, not just development, sort of. So yeah, yeah.
Perhaps.
But
I mean, from like the private to public, like if we're looking at turning these HOA parks into public, I would just want to make sure that we're like checking off boxes that allow for public access, for not from like DPW now having to maintain this park, that in reality it's so like stuck into an HOA that we can't.
Agreed. I totally agree. I'm not saying this. I would not advocate for acquiring us being responsible maintenance things that are mostly private, more just ensuring there is public access. It's not public ownership.
Well, and some of the work that you've done in the last few years around civic spaces does talk about put some standards in there in master plan and other places about what they're supposed to do, which is to connect neighborhoods together. So not serve a singular neighborhood, but connect two adjacent ones, so that the Rye neighborhood by Oak Creek Village has a little playground area, and it's pretty accessible to Oak Creek Village. And that's the point, is that we don't have developments, we have connected neighborhoods.
I think that's a really good opportunity. I think you had mentioned bike path connectivity as being another element, and I think just encouraging those to be greenways as much as possible. I think Kelsey has described those third spaces that are trails, but they have some benches. They might have some, natural greenery, some access to nature that could be incorporated into a development. And so it isn't every amenity that's added, but as you do add something like a bike path into a development, can it also have this park feature, greenway feature that might make it more than just a trail, and have some benches, have some greenery, have some nature in this one.
So wondering if, do you guys recall that like spectrum graphic that we shared with you the last meeting we had with you, it was like the like conservation, like passive active. Like I wonder if like a similar spectrum graphic that kind of depicts like the civic space spectrum would be helpful for this plan. Does that make sense? So like what does what's an example of like, well, that's all the way over here, that's like full public access versus like an example of one over here that has like no public access allowed at all. I don't know, would that be helpful or redundant?
I think there's a version of that that's helpful that we can talk about
Okay.
more. Just as a point of clarification, civic space is intended to be sort of the larger, more gathering, and generally more quasi-public to public spaces, and the site amenities are towards the smaller and more private for the residents end of those things. There are some things that sort of cross over, like a private tennis court is large, but it would be private, and there's things that are smaller, like, you know, the little parklet garden thing that's on, happens to be on the corner is very public, but is sort of private. So I think there's already a civic space versus site amenity division between the two things, but there definitely is some flow back and forth between, depending on the factors.
We'll work on that and pick up some of the language around site amenity and civic space and just speak to kind of I think it's a constant, that's the work of this committee, is to work with developers to get those best outcomes. And so we'll try to paint that, you know, in the park and civic amenity space. What that could look like,
Thank you guys for the conversation around that.
just to keep us moving too. This one is that recommendation that hopefully, you know, we should put it right next to the parking one and the transit, so they're all kind of together. But this is that bike and ped access. So working with the bike ped committee to kind of improve the bike and pedestrian access, building upon the active transportation plan. There's also connectivity guidelines for the various park types, a neighborhood park, a regional park, a pocket park, that all include bike and ped connectivity at various levels. And really looking at that as also an equity measure around access.
Kind of coming back to the trailer on Middlebury idea, like we thought that, and that this is also something we heard coming out of some of the advisory group meetings, but just like creating like a big old map. I mean, this is just an example of the map that we've like used throughout this process, but maybe there's one that's like much more cleaned up, much more simplified and public facing, that can help guide people from park to park and. Oh, sorry.
And slow.
Right.
God gives you.
Sorry.
Old ears, man.
But yeah, just to kind of have all of like your park information in one space for the community to access and just kind of. I think there's also opportunity for this to live on your website, and then we like recently learned about this concept called like social stories, and it's kind of just like a way to like give people an idea to understand like what their experience will be like at each park. So maybe that could supplement the map here.
Yeah, no, I don't know if there are some like maps that are printed on like signs around certain areas of the city, but some are a little inconsistent, some of them are like graffiti and stuff like that. So yeah, it's something that I think exists, but definitely could use some updating and wider publicization.
Yeah, there's a couple different kiosks along the rec path. And
Yeah.
some of them are pretty similar to one another, some of them are not.
Mhm.
But we do see a new map that would be uniform across those kiosks,
Mhm.
website. It might be even nice to print it. I like a printed bike map. There was one in Chittenden County for a while that was really good. But I would say that'd be your third one to go to, but having a new one across all platforms, just especially seeing through this project, we've compiled a lot of GIS data, working with your GIS team. I know Active Transportation Plan, and we use a lot of their data. So it feels like there's a time now where you could create that new park system map and rec path system map.
A trail map.
A trail map, yes,
Yeah.
but it would include all of your parks as well, yeah. And could be used across all of your platforms.
I think you were recommending that it would be posted at regular places along the trail, so that people knew where they are
Yeah, we definitely like to see it at all of the parks,
and navigate.
yeah, and then a couple of locations along the rec path system as well.
There's a few ones, so for old ones, it's not even a kiosk, it's just a road sign that is just a map. And it's pretty low cost and seems to work Or I like them certainly, you can kind of stick those everywhere, it's literally it's a sheet of aluminum.
Yeah.
On,
But I think there, it could go along, this recommendation could get expanded a little bit to that idea around kind of the trail around Middlebury with some signage improvements, wayfinding improvements, some marking improvements. Cause there isn't a whole lot of consistent, wayfinding along the rec path. There's some, that is consistent, but it's not ubiquitous throughout the whole system.
Agree, yeah, especially just so many paths, they're like different developers, different ages, like there's a lot of things where like. Something looks like a driveway, but it's actually a rec path, and there's just a lot of spots where it is not as in having a unified way system I wholeheartedly support.
I'm realizing that we're at a little like 15-minute warning here, but we'll continue.
Keep going.
Running through.
We're getting through.
Yeah, another thing we saw a lot in the public engagement was just, the desire for a farmer's market. So we were thinking you could explore some partnerships and consider a phased approach. So you could start monthly on a weekday. Yeah, and like make sure it doesn't overlap with the other existing programs. And then if the demand is still there, like work up to every other week and eventually weekly. I think everybody did say in the public engagement that they want it on a Saturday, but I thought that like starting in a weekday would be like lower commitment, so.
Well, in the draft nature, I think you wrote Saturday. I put weekday because I thought there were other ones on weekends.
Burlington Saturday.
Yeah.
But we thought we should,
Two of them in Burlington.
we didn't
We
hear,
need to compete with
on the
that.
survey, people said Saturday. We were thinking counter program, but a day you might test it out is,
Yeah. But anyway, a farmer's market. And then this also just comes straight out of the city plan, just ensuring, and just we want to make sure it's showing up here too, just ensuring that parks and open spaces are accessible within a reasonable quarter-mile distance of all residents. And I put reasonable in there just because like it came out that like if you live next to 89, but you're like a quarter mile as the crow flies, like you're not within walking distance. So want to make sure there's like reasonable like walking, driving, biking stuff there. And just like we thought maybe if we could consider like neighboring cities and towns. So like Burlington, for example, has like Centennial Woods, Oak Ledge Park, and the Country Club pretty close by.
Schmansky Park.
Yeah, sure. Szymanski's in Burlington.
No, it's another one. It has
Szymanska.
almost similar,
Semanska.
Sorry.
Oh,
Start with A and I.
Yeah.
Yes.
it's a very similar name. Definitely.
I called
Szymanski, Szymanska.
I'll add this one to the list too.
the one in Burlington.
Yeah, it's like right at the corner of like our city, Burlington and Winooski. It's
Yeah.
like over, it's adjacent to Centennial Woods. Like we walk through Centennial Woods to get there.
Right. It's across from Bayberry Common Development Area.
One quick comment on Burlington Country Club, to the best of my knowledge. Generally, it's been open during winter months to like essentially for kids sledding, but in the summer it's.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have put winter in there. That was
Yeah.
like the intent with adding it there, because I like have cross country ski there, so.
Oh, yeah. No.
National in South Burlington. Winter, they don't mind. Summer, they get testy.
Yeah, just in like, these are some other ones that were close by, just in the neighboring town, so just wanted to flag that.
You understand there's a formal agreement with Vermont National in winter, that you can be there.
Oh, there you go. But they get testy in the summer.
Yes.
I got my back to them, so my kids found out the hard way.
Oh,
Yeah.
Where's that picture?
Oak Ledge,
That's open?
Yep.
sorry, was there another question? Go on, okay, great. Sorry, I just threw this in here too, because like these are like the park type definitions that we presented to you last time, and we're gonna include these in the plan, and they're gonna help facilitate the development of these guidelines. So I'm gonna let Drew speak to this one, since
This is one, again, in this draft form. These are ones that we've taken as inspiration. I think they're from Fort Collins, Colorado. We want to develop similar park guidelines for each of those park types and definitions that we've discussed. We have not finished developing those, but we wanted to share these as kind of the direction that we want to head with each park. So you have a graphic layout of what each park type could look like, but also an understanding of what parking should look like for a neighborhood park versus a pocket park versus a regional park, pedestrian and bike path access, transit access, gateway signage, some of those major things, just of what a guideline for each park type might be. And I could,
I'm curious, in your review of this, will you have any recommendations of any parks that we currently have that are maybe functionally mismatched to
They're
the
absolutely.
guides?
Yeah, and so we'll both kind of be evaluating existing parks to those guidelines and within their definition. It's not like you can't have a waiver, you guys know about waivers. But most of them, we want them to kind of fit those guidelines. And in those park specific recommendations, they're gonna try to bring them up to the guideline.
You mentioned the recreation definition spectrum before. Are you aligning these ideas with the definitions that you had
Yes,
on
yeah.
that spectrum?
So that structure then comes into recommended guidelines for each park type. And that would be, hey, we're gonna add a new neighborhood park here in city center. Let's try and make sure it meets these guidelines. Can we get a transit stop? Can we get a bike ped connectivity, ideally with a bike path, off-road path, for example.
So, yeah, we'll create our own version of these with our fancy landscape architect, and I'm excited about it.
Do you see these lining up with our current categories, or are you recommending, I know you have this here, so are you gonna like, would we then put this in the land development regulations so that our different like civic spaces line up with these? Or is
Yeah.
that something you're still thinking through? Like,
Absolutely. I think that would be great to have these definitions in those, particularly it sounds like civic spaces rather than site amenities, for example. And I don't think. I would love for a development to be large enough to have a regional park as part of its civic space. That's probably pretty big. But just giving them an idea of you could do this, you're not gonna say you must do this, but I think it'd be really helpful to say, here's how we define our different park types. And then a developer could say, I have a really great idea for a pocket park that fits your definition. And it can't hurt to say, here's the things we're looking for with a neighborhood park. I don't know if they get to the point of requiring them, but certainly providing them as, hey, here's what we're thinking about.
Okay, cool. So that was parks. Now we're gonna dive into citywide open space recommendations. This one, I just again feel like this was mentioned in the other city documents. Wanted to get it in this plan, just like working to conserve those parcels identified in the 2020 study that are already near land development regulation map. Working to conserve those because they were identified as important by the city.
These still remain highly critical parcels. The science around why they're important is still very sound. The only thing there is that their focus, one of their biggest criteria was on large acreage for habitat and connectivity purposes. The only other layer you want to that is there are a little bit of other values for public access or even enjoyment. You don't have to have access to it to be close to nature, having some greenery in the more dense areas also valuable. And so it's like all of these are still high priority, but there's opportunities for much smaller parcels to also become acquisition priorities as well.
And speaking of that, we developed this conservation priority rubric, which I think I shared with y'all last time. That's kind of like a list of parameters that will help the city identify how valuable a parcel would be for the purposes of habitat preservation. So just recommending that you use that rubric to help identify the additional open space parcels that maybe were not captured in that study, or to help prioritize which parcels were identified in that study and which ones should be conserved over another. Similarly, using the rubric for should the city end up moving forward with acquisition of additional parcels for open space conservation, the rubric can also help decide whether humans can be allowed in there or not. So if it ranks super highly, S1 natural communities, maybe humans aren't allowed there, but if it's a northern covered forest that is all over the state, maybe humans can go in there. And this is a refresher for what that rubric is. Sorry, tiny text here, but
Can you explain the rubric to me?
So this is the conservation priority rubric. We utilize the parameters that Arrowwood Environmental identified for the purposes of their 2020 study, as well as the ones that the city council identified during the interim zoning ISOP. I'm sorry, I always forget the acronym. But. Another one, pretty straightforward, is just maintaining scenic views. I feel like we're super lucky to live where we live, just given all the natural beauty that surrounds us. And the public felt pretty strongly that these remain a priority for the city, just maintaining those scenic views. We were thinking that there's some opportunity to better promote public access to existing city-owned open spaces. So like the city owns 20, there are 3 more that maybe you already owned, they were imminently, maybe they already owned, but like maybe using the conservation priority rubric, maybe engaging the public to figure out like which, or just looking at like the density areas to figure out which ones should be promoted more for human access. I think would be important. So like you had mentioned the O'Brien parcel earlier, I think that was recently acquired, and like I actually mentioned that later on in this presentation about like maybe that one should be looked at for some trails, just given the location that it's in.
We are making some recommendations, for example, for specific open spaces to look at, but as you get closer to 2050, you're gonna need to look at those opportunities kind of as a city as you move on.
Yeah, and we specifically flagged like Quail Run, Catamount Ridge, and Curie are all next to each other down in like the southern part of the city. And when we did our site visit, we found like a crazy network of trails there that were obviously not maintained by the city. So it's like, is that an opportunity to formalize those trails and have it be like another open space for people to recreate?
Did see a need in that area for some public access. And you do see user created trails often when there is a need like that, an opportunity. But the trails they build, some of them are good, some of them are very close to other ones. Not all of them should be there. That's our professional opinion, but some of them probably should. And so our recommendation is to reclaim maybe the whole trail system and implement some new formalized trails or assess some of them. You can make some of them formal and reclaim some of the others. We would recommend partnering with Fellowship of the Wheels. Is a little bit of their bread and butter. It's something they might love to help with. And so you could bring some resources in to help manage those trails.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just potato 7, I have 3 minutes. So developing an invasive species management plan and stewardship plan. This is kind of also a no-brainer. There's just like a lot of some ideas here to engage or for what that could look like and how to engage the public. Each individual park and open space will be called out in these plans for which open species, or sorry, which invasive species that are in those open spaces. So I think that and there's already recommendations that came out from our like sub-consultant Stantec about how to do that. So there'll be like mini management recommendations under each individual park. And sorry, open space. Just another idea I have, just like considering citizen science and other tools to help get residents involved, just speaking more to that like stewardship thing. iNaturalist is like one of my favorite tools of all time, just to like get the community excited about like native and invasive like flora and fauna. It could just be like another way for the city to have more eyes on the parks to help manage those invasive species or find native species that maybe you didn't know were around. And then continue collaborating with farms, Bread and Butter, Common Roots, and the Hort Farm again are like the 3 big ones that I know about. If there's any that I'm missing that the city like actually works with, please let me know. But Bread and Butter, I know that I've been trying to nail them down to talk about this like trails plan they're working on, but I know they're looking to develop a trails plan for their land. So I think that is like a great opportunity for the city to consider like future public access and like trail-based passive recreation. And then Common Roots, I know they lease 4 acres at Hubbard, and they also lease the Homestead House at Wheeler as their main office space. They have all sorts of plans for how they want to expand, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate with them. And the Hort Farm, we've already kind of talked about, and I need to edit that, so ignore that, and I'm super embarrassed about it. Anyway.
Just one quick note that there's a 4th, our largest farm is the Belter Farm.
Belter Farm.
That's along the Winooski River. So in terms of operating farms in the city, that's our largest.
Thanks. Okay.
There's also something called the Agri-Hood coalition. Agri-Hood, 6 or 7 farms, some of them in South Burlington, some in Shelburne. But they work together, and so if you're talking to Bread and Butter about trails, remember that they're connected with a lot of others that would surely be interested.
Thank you. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's a federal. It's sort of organized under a federal tax structure, and it's an agri-hood collective, a little bit like the idea of the Intervale, sort of conceptually, with a whole bunch of mechanisms to do it.
Is there, well,
Well, so far, we've just been doing commissioner questions, but how many more of these citywide recommendations do you have?
That's it. I was gonna, well, I mean, that's.
Because this would be a great time to like get some input, because I think
Yeah.
there were at least one hand online and one in the room.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Do you wanna go in the room?
Oh, I was just gonna make a comment that city council, basically allocated over $900,000 in open space funds. For that Eau Claire property that, you know, that Bread and Butter's included in, and I just want to make sure that we're finding out the status of what our options are to get access to those properties, you know, for passive recreation. I just don't, you know. I'm sure that, from what I've heard from Corey Pierce and others, they plan to have the trails accessible to the public. Trails, but I'm not sure about anything else. Thanks.
And then Ryan, I know you had your hand up. Do you still have some comments or questions? Oh, go ahead. I think you're.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
you can.
Yeah, this was a little while back. Let's see if I can pull my note card up again. I like the piece about the HOAs. I thought was really interesting. I'm glad that came up. I think Kelsey said some of what I wanted to say, which was that the proximity towards other people makes a difference and it's a value to the community. I definitely want to make sure that an HOA on like a dead end road neighborhood with a weird park that nobody could go to, like would not be bought by the city and maintained by the city, if they decide not to cover it. That said, things that are close, right, like there's that. I think Kelsey had a really good grip on it, so I'm fine with that. I just want to reiterate that comment. The other thing I've noticed with HOAs is I've had some constituents reach out saying that they weren't allowed to have gardens per their HOA rules. And I think that's frustrating. I'd like to see if the city has a way to limit the kinds of rules that HOAs have in regards to using that public space. Obviously, gardens can get out of hand. There are a lot of work to maintain. People sometimes give up partway through, but we have our public garden spaces overcrowding, and we have lots of people in neighborhoods that they can't actually own or control the land, and they're being told that they aren't allowed to even grow a tomato plant. And I think that needs some addressing and attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Great comment.
Yeah, and we were thinking about gardens as part of those, it's probably more of the site amenity space, but if that could become. Public or certainly available to people in those new multifamily, that is very desirable, because we did hear a big desire and demand for community gardens. And there is a wait list for community gardens throughout the city, so there's a need throughout the city for community gardens as well. So.
I do, so we got to 32 slides, so we have a bunch more of recommendations, classified or yeah, I guess organized under like high density areas, medium density areas, and low density areas. I recognize that we are at our time, and so I wonder if it makes sense for us to send our slides to you for distribution to you guys, and you could get back to us for feedback, or do you have a preference for how you'd like to do that?
Just in terms of the rest of your agenda, there's nothing urgent about the tier 1A component. So we can, if you wanted to continue tonight, we can bump that item. There's nothing time sensitive about it.
There's nothing strictly urgent for today about the heights.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to keep going, but maybe we could,
Take 5 minutes.
we could take 5 minutes first and regroup. Is that what you do a 5-minute break? I would love to stretch my leg. We're gonna continue going with the park and open space plan tonight and remove from our agenda the next 2 items. The heights behind the Sheridan and the Act 250 Tier 1 discussion. We'll move them to a future meeting. So,
Thank you.
so we can do it.
I really appreciate the extra.
No, and it's really exciting. So we're
We're excited about it too. All right, cool. So we're gonna focus this next part of the conversation on areas that we worked with Kelsey to classify as high density. So we have a couple of different iterations of the maps here. So this was like our first try here. So we had like our current density map, which is the colors underneath it. Then the gray bubbles were like some of the, like, it was the bubbles from like Kelsey and Paul, but like where additional housing units will be going. Oh, sorry, here, let me see if I can zoom in from here.
No, we can
I can
get it
also
bigger.
make it like that.
There.
That's what I can do.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So you can see there's like teeny numbers here. So like there's gonna be like 300 additional units in this bubble. Anyway, we tried to like clean up that map using some more data from the city itself. And so like the red on this is gonna be the high density in the future.
So Carolyn, as a very quick clarification, the numbers on the map on the left are round hundreds of numbers, so they're very approximate. And it's our staff internal guess at how we could potentially achieve the approximately 7,400 housing target. That is part of the regional housing target, that's part of the state housing target. So this is our sort of back of the envelope first attempt at breaking down the 7,400 into sort of some geographic
Which
distribution.
is the middle range.
The middle target, and then breaking it down into some projections based on our zoning, based on projects that we know that are already in the pipeline. Some density considerations, and then on top of the numbers that are shown there, an additional, another about 400 as distributed infill. So like a person takes a single family and makes it a duplex, like that kind of thing, distributed throughout the city. So just clarifying where those numbers are coming from. They're not any development proposals. Some development information feeds into the numbers, but they add up to about 7,400 for that purpose.
For clarifying.
Sure, I'm just giving context.
Yeah. And so this is just a little bit like a cleaned up version. So the red again is like where the like density may or may not be concentrated depending on how the city wants to move forward. Orange is medium, yellow is low, and green is like, you know, what is the green? Conservation, very low intensity. Yes. And this is the airport. Okay, so like our blanket recommendations for those high red density areas are these. So we define it as like high areas that they currently have and will see significant housing unit development in the coming years, many of which will be multifamily homes. And so for like parks bucket of recommendations for these high density areas, we literally just like want the city to use every acquisition tool available to them to build as many parks as possible. So this could include like right of ways, development set asides, land acquisitions, anything else that we can come up with together to make that possible. And then just like creative like pocket park and third space creation is another thing that we are hoping the city can pursue. So just like realizing that these areas are going to be like super dense, lots of concrete, not a lot of available open space. Like what ways can we come up with to create those spaces for the community to gather outdoors? So this could be plazas, splash pads, picnic areas. I don't know, do you guys watch the show Parks and Recreation? There was that like mini park that Leslie created in that one episode, literally like stuff like that. Maybe not to that extreme, but you know, just trying to get creative about ways we can get people outside. And then when we're looking at open spaces for those high density areas, similar to the above note, just like using every acquisition tool you can to conserve those open spaces for the public. May need to be more scenic, access to nature, stormwater, urban oriented than like your big like Wheeler Hubbard situation. Again, just given like the availability of what the city has. And then like another blanket recommendation is just like working to conserve those parcels as listed in the land development regulation map again, which is like the habitat blocks that the Arrowwood folks identified back in the day, 5 years ago. And then exploring opportunities for community gardening and agriculture as well.
And that's really picking up on that HOA gardening opportunity as well, just thinking any way that you can get in gardening and agriculture as well as open space into these dense areas.
Just remember that in HOA, if you want to use common land, you've got to get a legal easement, which can be complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime the word easement shows up, I'm like complicated. So this is like our blanket recommendations for a high density area. Just like, again, I want to like be cognizant of time. Like we do have like all of the high density areas that we can run through in those individual recommendations, or to save time, we can like skip ahead and just like do these like blanket statements.
Go through it, I mean, unless you don't want to, but I mean, this is
Yeah.
this is chance for feedback.
Going.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Sweet. Okay, so the first high density area that we flagged with Kelsey is just like we're calling it the city center area. I mean, we can work like more to name these later, but for the parks recommendations for this area, we would love to see like 1 to 2 additional community neighborhood regional parks and as many pocket parks and thirst spaces as possible. Just again, like thinking about like how dense this area already is and will continue to become. We mentioned the U-Mall a couple or many slides ago, but we think that there's like a lot of opportunities for future recreation space. It could be the indoor recreation center. Another pipe dream we had was like maybe we reclaim some of the concrete landscape and restore it to green space and have it offer some sort of like lawn experience. Goose Park, Stormwater Park. I don't know what the formal name is of that like cute little park that's like right over there. But we thought,
Across the street,
We know where.
okay, it is Goose Park.
Yeah, nice park.
Yeah. So
it's on the city website.
yeah, so it's not on the city website, so we're like, maybe we can like advertise that accordingly.
Find where the goose.
Oh, who's one?
Yeah.
Who's one?
We call it Stormwater Park, we're the old.
Planners. We were like, maybe that could be advertised or upgraded as like a formal city park that like DPW maybe maintains, and we talked out about what that could look like. And then
It's
maybe.
also connected to
Yeah.
city center park.
Exactly. And maybe there's like an opportunity for the installation of additional amenities that would serve the, like, however, there's so many people that live here, so like, can there be a playground that gets put in there, just to help, again, improve access to those amenities that folks want. And then for open spaces, similar to the above, like, again, just like trying to think big here for the purposes of this plan, like, can there be 1 to 2 additional open spaces with public access that's in this area? Maybe it's through again those tools that you guys have available to you. Things that are also in this region are like the DeGraff Park property, the Garvey property, and the Airport Parkway Natural Area, which I believe are all city owned. We did like a lot of back and forth about trying to figure this out, but I like am wondering if like, is this another opportunity for the conservation priority rubric to be utilized to figure out like, are these parcels like, should they remain like not advertised for public access to protect the ecosystems that are there, or does the city move toward turning one of them into a park, or does the city move toward at least like trying to establish some passive recreation infrastructure to improve access to the green spaces?
Can somebody tell me where these three, I know Airport Parkway, natural.
I always
Where's
get
Garvey?
Garvey and DeGraff mixed up. One of them is at the end of Duval Street, sort of,
Just east of Patchen. In the Chamberlain.
Yeah.
neighborhood.
and then, the other one is right off, Williston Road. Next to
That's
the
Garvey.
senior housing that has been there for a long time.
There's this
Are there
big
any
trail through it.
quarries that are now defunct in South Burlington?
Beta took over one of them. The other one is still operating at the moment. A question though, in this consideration, it's not a capital P park, but the airport itself is in the process of building a shared use path along a portion of what was some of the acquired homes. And they have an intent for a community-focused green space
That's
for a
exciting.
substantial portion of that. So that should be recognized as
Okay,
an
all right, I didn't know
amenity.
about
We
that.
have to be careful in our word choice. It's not a park, but it may be a public benefit area. A civic space
Yeah, exactly.
for the traveling public.
Way stop along the path.
One of our companies had this racist thing, I guess, the recognition in general. It's not like I haven't seen anything particular that screams out at me, but just with all these recommendations, there was a strong, desire to make sure these things are all centrally located and, easy to access and to feel like very front facing, just to make sure that at the same time that we're being cognizant of proximity to like major roads, just because of this, like, for example, like we're talking about the U-Mall property. If we have a park that's directly abutting 89, like 100 feet away from 89, that's going to be underutilized just because it's so loud. Like, I mean, I and it's not purely hypothetical. I mean, this is this is my personal opinion, but like, for example, in downtown Winooski, they've got that huge circulator. They built a park in the middle of it. It's beautifully landscaped, well thought out. It's very underutilized because you're in the middle of a 2-lane traffic circulator thingy.
And
And just,
something that would
Yeah.
fit really well in the park guidelines that we
Yeah.
were talking about before, yeah.
so because we don't want them tucked away in the middle of nowhere, but we also don't want them on really loud roads that are just gonna make them unpleasant places to be. So
Yeah, we want to consider.
just make sure we're thinking about that at high level so we don't acquire properties that are just not gonna be nice places to actually recreate due to
Well,
noise
Colin, I
pollution.
have idea for the 4 legs of the clover leaf and how that's just.
Yeah, we can talk about that more. I'm curious what you think, but it's. Which jug handle, sorry?
The one at East Ave comes into Main Street and.
I have a lot of thoughts on the intersection.
That big pole on the west,
Yeah.
no, south
The
side.
Winooski Speedway.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat more of those lengths, but I think it's more just. Yeah. But no, it's people have done that, like people do that, like, oh, it's a great place for a park.
I think some good events in that Winooski Rotary.
No, if you're an event, it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's despite.
Yeah.
The thing, because there's an event, it's the only way you're going there.
That's true.
I think I said the exact same thing about that space, because there is the place where the farmer's market is, it's not publicly owned, but just on the other, not in the center of the circulator, but just outside. Could have used that investment, I think. But they didn't own that space, so that was the space they had.
Yeah.
But totally understood for that, absolutely.
Another high density area that we delineated are talking about is like Farrell Street and Proctor Ave. So there's these are so close to Farrell Park and Red Rocks Park, so we just feel like those individual park recommendations will be like applicable to this area here. We also think that bike path connectivity could be improved to those 2 parks as well as East Woods, since it's in that region too. And then like, again, speaking to that like blanket citywide recommendation, like Oak Ledge is like kind of nearby, like the bike path is there, like how can we improve or encourage additional bike path travel to that park outside of the
And
city?
importantly, those third space recommendations apply to everywhere in high density. We're just talking about, not any new neighborhood community park, but just, investing in Farrell and Red Rocks.
When you say Farrell Park, are you talking only about the recreation fields, or are you talking about the woods in which there are a lot of paths and which I frequent a lot? I call them the West Woods, but it's or the Wheelock.
The Wheelock property, yeah, they're separate. The Wheelock is an open space property, so it's really talking about Farrell Park. But that, there are,
Well, UVM had a ropes course in there as well.
yeah,
During my chat with Lisa, they mentioned that the ropes course is it's not currently being used.
No.
But I'm not sure what the future of it is, and that's something I should clarify with her.
Yeah,
And
it's still there.
and just to be clear, I think, so you're just talking about parks right this minute, and then you're gonna get into the open spaces, is that where these?
No, open
Oh, no,
space
they are
are
right
there
there, oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I guess I just didn't realize that that Wheelock was right there, so I think we'll have to specifically call it Wheelock here as well.
It's part of that recommendation, trying to also connect East Woods to Farrell as well. Is that sort of part of that conversation we're thinking? So at the moment, they're like right next to each other, there's no real way to get between
It's
them.
connected, but where the bakery is.
Not officially. There's a really sketchy herd path back there. You have to like dodge behind the chain link fence. That's not an official connection.
Also technically be up to UVM since they own East Woods, but
Sort of. There's currently informal pedestrian access off basically behind the Domino's. It's a completely separate land block. That's how everyone accesses it. It's not official though.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking like the parking area that the main Eastwood has is like a few hundred feet away from the rec path on our rec path, but there's no actual way to get between those two, like on the eastern side of Eastwoods, work from the parking area. Is just another connection doesn't exist. I don't know if that's too granular though at this point.
no, that's
works
important.
really well with that recommendation around working with UVM.
Yeah.
And that would really, trying to increase bike path connectivity to these parks is one of the
Yeah.
big recommendations, is densifies. So that would be,
Like it does have a loop sort of through Farrell and Eastwoods with a couple connections either side. But it would require working with Levy and possibly some other land.
Sweet. The next high density area is Shelburne Road North, Brewer Parkway, Fayette Drive, Orchards. So for the parks bucket, this one felt like another place where like 1 to 2 new community neighborhood regional parks could go. Also like trying to lean into the improvements that we're gonna recommend for Samansky and overlook the Underwood. And then we also think there's another opportunity to collaborate with UVM to locate areas for additional parklands, maybe the White Farm. And then communicating with the schools that are there to allow public use of the playground and other recreation facilities, again, just tying back to those like citywide recommendations. For open spaces, similar to the above, just maybe 1 to 2 new open spaces could be possible. Silken also emailed me a couple weeks ago mentioning that there's like a adjacent parcel right next to the Shelburne Road Cemetery that could potentially serve as an open space. Maybe potential acquisition. We're like trying to walk the line of like not being like the city should conserve this parcel, but maybe like thought I could flag that one as a potential opportunity, especially since that's gonna be a really dense area.
Just a very quick note, Rice Memorial High School would be better located in the Farrell Street section.
Sorry, thank you.
No, it's okay.
Nice to. Sorry, just writing everything down so we do not forget it. Okay, Shelburne Road South, same deal, highly dense, not a lot of parks down that way. So is there an opportunity for a new one, maybe 2? And then just review any recommendations that happened for Baycrest. And then for the open spaces, we already talked about this, but those 3 that are connected in that region that already have all those trails, like how can we formalize those trails? Does the city want to formalize those trails? Does it want to allow human access there, etc.? And then there is another city-owned parcel that we came across called the Allen Road parcel. And this one felt like an opportunity for maybe some public access, depending again on like the quality of the ecosystem. Again, just like trying to think about like what does the city already have? How can it improve access?
It's immediately on Allen Road, just up the hill from the 2 large multi-unit buildings.
Oh,
Between there and Bay.
Hillside. Hillside. That big
The north
field?
side of Allen Road, yeah.
Yeah, north side.
Yes,
The open field is north side?
north side between the 2 multifamily buildings and the Bay Crest.
Bay
Bay
Crest.
Street.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
And aren't there trails that are near Snyder's 4-story buildings on Green Mountain Drive behind there that the DRB talked about?
yes, I think those fall into the Quail Run Ferry natural area, yeah.
Those 3 places are all kind of connected and there's
Cool.
trails throughout.
Next one is Kennedy Drive, Timberlane and Twin Oaks. Same deal, pretty dense, not a lot going on there in the terms of, or in the way of parks. So maybe 1 to 2 new if it's possible. Yeah, there's literally 0 parks I wrote down in my brain vomit presentation creation. For open spaces, Mayfair Park seems like a pretty large parcel in that region. So it's like unclear to me if that's like an HOA deal or can we like formalize public access to that land. And then Spear Meadows Park is one, maybe it's already owned, maybe it's still in the process of being acquired by the city, but this one also is pretty big. And so, yeah, given the size and location within a high density area, like is this an opportunity for another active recreation park?
Is Spear Meadows Park the one you're meaning to talk about?
Near where?
Spear Meadows is not near these 3.
Okay, so maybe it's marked wrong on our map or something.
Maybe, we'll.
Sorry.
Spear Meadows is
I would love to have the map.
on
Yeah, I know.
Spear Street near
Is
the
it on Spear
intersection with Swift.
Okay, so maybe I was looking at the wrong piece of land. It's entirely possible.
We'll clarify.
Right, there is as part of Spear Meadows, there will be a 5-acre piece of land given to the city.
Yeah.
And it's a
That would
it's a
be
great
public
aspect, but
civic
it's not
It's not-
accessible to these folks, to this area very easily.
I have the base map pulled up. Sorry, guys. From that side. Okay, so maybe disregard, like, I still think this recommendation is relevant. Maybe it's just in the
It should might just be
bucket
the name.
area. I'm sorry, there's a lot of
That's
lots
okay.
of parcels. I'm sorry. And then this is just a question, like I wasn't sure if the Kennedy Drive, like stormwater open space had opportunities for like human existence, or if it's like just a big old like bog stormwater area. Maybe we should have visited that during our site visits, but that was just another one that felt like in this area that maybe could be.
Not a wetland? Well, who owns the land behind the high school where the disc golf?
The high school,
The high school.
or the school district,
Does that go
Yeah.
all the way to the sewer house on 116?
it does,
There's a trail connecting.
yeah.
Well, one weird one is, I don't know, this might be, I might be completely off the mark, of the purpose of this, but I've noticed that our official map has like an easement along that natural gas pipeline south of Kennedy Drive on it. I don't know if there's a possibility. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like just, so it's between Grandview and 89. There's like a natural,
Oh,
and it's
There's an easement, yes.
there's an easement through
Yes.
there. Is there potential to have a path there?
I haven't looked at our easement in detail recently.
Oh, so-
There's sort of different, utilities easements versus other
Gotcha.
purposes easements.
I guess I saw like a bike head map or something, but I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe.
Is that behind the sports club?
Essentially,
Yeah,
yeah.
more or
It's a weird one. It's called
It's
Clackamas
pretty rough
intersection.
down there.
Yeah, but yeah, it currently is no. I remember seeing a bike ped master plan that is like listed as an easement, but I don't know. Maybe this is utility easement that'd be infeasible.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So,
I've looked at its steep.
oh yes, I'm sure it is at the moment.
Okay.
Medium density, so those were all the high density area recommendations, similar to that category, we have some like blanket recommendations for those medium density areas. So they currently and will have a mix of single family and multifamily homes. For the parks, for parks and medium density areas, we were like thinking that these are the most well served in terms of existing park distribution, so there's like less need for new parks, but there still is some need to help address like what's gonna happen in the future of South Burlington. And then we also just thought that like improving bike connectivity would help get people to where they need to be. And then open spaces, like same deal. Can we increase the number where possible, especially since this is gonna get increasingly dense as the years go on, and also improve bike ped connectivities to those. It's a little simpler than high density, maybe. The first one for medium density is it's like Chamberlain, Wilson Road South, Lime Kiln Road, Country Club Estates, so kind of like in the north part of the city from what I was able to gather. I feel like the northern part of the city is pretty lacking in parks. There's not a lot going on up there, so I'd like love to see 1 to 2 up there to serve those communities. And then open spaces, I think there's like some more specific like opportunities here, because like the Winooski Valley Parks District, like that's where Muddy Brook Park and the Winooski Gorge Natural Area are. So like maybe there's additional collaboration there to ensure people can go have fun over there. And then the Garvey, wait, why is this in 2 areas? Sorry. maybe-
Yeah, so
Slightly full.
those are pretty inaccessible stuff. It just needs to get deleted out of there.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's on the other side of the airport, so it's
Mm.
not really accessible to those people. It'd be hard for them to get
So
around.
this was a hard one. I was asked to consolidate areas that are
Oh,
somewhat
it does
similar.
say Chamberlain.
So
Oh.
Chamberlain, Williston Road South being sort of Mayfair Park-ish, Route Street, all of that. Makes sense to be together, but then Lime Kiln Road, so there's some multifamily housing up heading towards Colchester, and then Country Club Estates is across from where the National Guard is.
Mhm.
Those are even more, those are fairly completely disconnected from Chamberlain, so this is kind of a setup where there are some similarities in sort of building type and density of housing, but there's a pretty significant disconnect across the airport. So needing to think of them as sort of Chamberlain plus the immediate other side of Williston Road as one sort of park ecosystem, I think, and then Lime Kiln and Country Club Estates on the other side within this bucket.
Yeah, because I think what's hard about this is like, you've got JC and the Garvey and the DeGraff and the airport area for Chamberlain and Wilson, but Lime Kiln and Country Club Estates have the 2 natural areas, like it's very, like I can't imagine somebody who lives near Chamberlain Elementary, like walking or biking to.
Well, we could separate.
Yeah,
it.
So, yeah.
I just wanna think about a couple of areas, like maybe you call them disconnected areas.
Yeah.
The regional future land use map specifically called out the Country Club States area as a transition area because it is just so disconnected from everything that it doesn't really, it's a wonderful place for a home, for the people who live there, for their homes, but they have no access to parks or services or
Yeah.
store or a school or anything.
It's almost Colchester, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where the regional connectivity becomes really important, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that's a reason to pull it out, is to say the solution for the Chamberlain and Mayfair Park neighborhood doesn't meet their needs and vice versa.
Yeah, I was like struggling with this. I almost called out Lime Kiln like on its own when I was putting this together, and I was like, I don't know, but maybe we can work that out
Yep,
offline and
yeah.
like, yeah, try to figure.
This just feels like separating, cause
Yeah.
like I live in Chamberlain and. You know, even though we're adventuresome walkers, like we're not walking like those natural areas, they're just.
They can tell on the airport.
Thank you, this is like really helpful feedback. Just another call, I guess maybe this is less applicable since we'll divide these, but the Eldridge Cemetery is also over there, so like what open space are there, like uses are available for that? Because it is city owned, there's like 3 other cemeteries in the area too, but they're not city owned, so, yeah. Another medium density area was like the Village of Dorset, Indian Creek and Songbird. These ones were pretty close to veterans and wheelers, so just following those recommendations we thought could be helpful in improving bike ped connectivity. And then open space, Moss Glen and Fox Run are city-owned open spaces, but they are currently not allowed. There's no public access allowed, I think, because the habitat is so high quality. So we were thinking like that should probably just stay the way it is. And then just like searching for other parcels that maybe consider using the land development regulation map. Again, these are such draft recommendations. Like I think there's opportunity to build these out a little bit more for each area. So just want to flag that. Next one is Dorset Street to the south, which is like Dorset Farms and the golf course. Again, kind of close to veterans and wheelers, so we think that there's like access improvements like we made there. Like we talked about the golf course here a little bit there and how like you can do like cross country skiing there, maybe some sledding. Is there like ways that we can maybe increase or improve that infrastructure there in the winter? Because a lot of people want cross country skiing. And then also just ensuring that maybe the Winooski Valley Parks District continues to maintain Buddy Brook as a place for habitat and wildlife protection. I don't know what this means. Sorry, it's a typo. Yeah.
Consider something.
Consider something.
One of the things you comment of working with golf course owners on public access, I don't know if you had a particular model in mind. What the thing that jumps to mind is Riverside Golf Club in Portland, Maine is like the main cross-country ski like venue for the Portland area. It's a golf course in the summer and is a major winter area in the it's a major ski, at least when I was high school was. And that maybe I'd be curious what their model for enabling that kind of collaboration, because it's very intense. We might not be one of your student like that intensive a use case, but that is a example of that. At least when I was last there 10 years ago, that seemed to be working pretty well.
What we
Riverside Club.
understand is that there is it's kind of, I think, written into the agreement with them for public access in the winter.
Mhm.
But that's to the lands and not to parking
Mhm,
or
mhm.
facilities. And it's a big expense for them, I think, to make parking available, make facilities available. So a thought there is there may be a way to create parking at a nearby park that's nearby to the golf course. And then kind of allowing access onto the trails from a public park rather than from the course.
The upper parking lot is Wheeler, but the golf club has never objected to anybody cross-country skiing there in winter.
Right, but I think legally they have to allow it, they have to allow public access in the winter for skiing or part of their, as far as I understand. Well, legally, but that's part of
Sorry, I
the.
took word this
But you
better.
could park at Wheeler and cross the street.
I think formalizing that perhaps a little bit, there could even be maybe a warming hut
Yeah.
or a winter.
I didn't know we were allowed to go there. Like it's not that well publicized. I've gone to Burlington Country Clubs. I see people on it, but I didn't know that we could.
You can.
Yeah, cool. Well, keep that in mind.
Also, their main parking lot in winter is not used much.
No, but they don't have to plow it.
Well,
Just so you know, we're recording this, so if you don't get all the notes, you'll be able to get them.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
I know, I feel like it's really talking and you're trying to write. and-
No, it's
Yeah.
great. This is just my process and how my crazy brain works. So thank you though. Okay, so diving into the low density area, parking and space recommendations. Low density areas are areas that will see limited development in coming years. So more of the single family homes, less of like these tall buildings as the one we're in now. Do you want to talk to this one? You wrote a lot of stuff on it.
You wrote a lot of stuff.
There's less of a need for new parks. There's not every area in the low densities actually overserved, but most of them are. It makes sense because it's the easiest place to acquire land for new parks. So it has the least amount of need for new park development. But that doesn't mean that no new park should go into these areas. We do think a park like a Veterans 2.0, which we have heard is a strong need for a regional park with kind of field or in sports oriented, like the Veterans is at capacity. And we would love to see a regional serving facility here in the city center, but it's not going to be a sports and field oriented facility. That's probably, and it makes sense for it to be in a lower density area because that's the sort of place that people are going to drive to anyway. And so a park like that would make a lot of sense in the less dense areas. But you just want to be thoughtful and not put all of the parks in these areas, even though it may be the most land available areas. So leverage some of that land availability. There's certainly some park types, but it's going to be your larger, more regional, more kind of drive-to oriented parks that are really going to make sense to add in these areas. For open spaces, those large parcels are really important for habitat, and so a lot of the larger parcels are in the zone, and it really makes sense to acquire them for those values. And so you'll do a lot of open space acquisition and where those parcels have already been identified, but it will be less of that kind of opportunistic, smaller scale nature and open space. Will be more of that large habitat connectivity acquisition, like the one around Bread and Butter, for example, missing this area. Leclerc. Excuse me.
So Queen City Park is one of the lower, like, there's not going to be a lot of development over there anymore. So we just like think there's opportunities to increase bike ped connectivity to Red Rocks, Farrell, and Samansky. And then just like reviewing those Red Rocks Park recommendations that are gonna come out of this plan. And like, again, just maybe work with the HOA or whatever the term for that entity is to allow public access to that small playground and basketball court.
So one question on that, your example of working with the HOAs. Will you have a rubric around when there's a strategy for that? So I think of Queen City Park and it's a wonderful little neighborhood, but there are no other South Burlington neighborhoods within a mile of it. So maybe that one doesn't go high on the list because who's going to use that playground who doesn't already live there?
This is
As
exactly
opposed to
what Adam chatted with us about during our 5-minute break. Was like, hey, I need a rubric just like the conservation one for acquiring
HOA parks.
recreation and park spaces, and so we said we'll do that for you. So we think that is definitely will be of value, absolutely, because every civic or site amenity might not be, right for acquisition by the city, and some might be, and it might be what's your opportunity to develop into something new or something different. It might be a small playground, but it could become something a little bit more. That might factor into it. Absolutely.
And then for open space, I'm not even sure if there are any habitats listed in that on the LDR map here, but if there are, I just wanted to put that there.
Would this also be something, particularly thinking on Red Rock's connectivity of working with the city of Burlington too? Because I can think of two heavily used, but I believe informal access points to Red Rocks from, this is for Burlington residents, but there's a couple like large developments that have paths in there that are not advertised, not fenced, people use them all the time, but that's on Burlington side because it's on the, it's on the town line.
Red Rocks condos has a path.
Yeah, but is it official?
No.
Yeah.
This is the path.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, the condos on.
And the next one over also has one too, like an informal one, the one to the east of it. They both of them are informal ones, yeah.
Is this where Spear Meadows is in this section?
Yes.
I'll look at the map, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm annoyed at myself for
Close-ish.
messing that up, but anyway, Spruce South, Deerfield, Baycrest South Village is lacking in parks, or we feel it is, so we consider, like, is there an opportunity for like an active recreation with playground and like other facilities that aren't necessarily in that zone. Also reviewing recommendations for the Hubbard Recreation area. I know that we were talking about the O'Brien Eastview. It sounds like it is already owned by the
That's not
city.
in this area.
It's okay, so
Maybe that's the switch. That's the reverse.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the one you got backwards.
Okay, so forgive me for that
Good.
error.
I'm glad we found it.
So we'll fix that. Yeah, then there's also like the South Village open space parcel that I believe is also city owned, and I'm just like wondering if there's like, it sounds, is that the one you were saying before, it has like informal trails on it, or like there are formal trails so like can those be formalized to allow public access? Like what other opportunities for recreation and the whole city resident availability
I
is
wonder
there?
in this one if part of the challenge might be park amenities as much as park. Because there is the overlook at Underwood, there is Hubbard, there is or will soon be this Spear Meadows parcel, but none of them are amenitized for folks.
Yeah.
So it may be,
In South Village too.
and South Village, so it may not quite be the same challenge as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, maybe I think this area is lacking in amenities. Maybe is a way to think about that. We can retool the language there. Yeah, absolutely.
In several slides, it's review, there's a review note. Recommendations, are they further up in this presentation, or are they somewhere else?
Did not include them in this presentation for the purposes of time, but they will be in the final plan, and I also have them in a spreadsheet, so if y'all are like itching or chomping at the bit to read those individual park recommendations, we can send them in draft form in the spreadsheet.
And the final plan is when?
End of January. And we're also gonna have another public meeting, I believe, on December 4th, that will have everything, so. You'll or the Park and Recs Committee meeting, or the advisory group meeting.
We'll be
That would
unpacking.
be good for us.
Mm.
To get to see it before we have this conversation with you, because we have to do everything on the fly.
Absolutely. I think, unfortunately, we were working on it, like I said, kind of
A
right
deadline.
at the meeting, and are in this kind of working stage with the other committees. So our hope is that we can share them with you. We can share these other ones via email, and you guys can have, through December to review and make comments and all of that before. And then obviously with the public as well, we'd love to incorporate your edits and updates ideally before we kind of have that public meeting.
And maybe this falls into the same category, this Heinsberg Road, South like Butler Farms area, maybe it's like not under parked, but maybe under amenitized, so maybe there's like some shifts in language and recommendations there. But so the Eau Claire parcels, also bread and butter, like know that there's the trail happening there, but like, I feel like that's like, oh, there's like multiple parcels with the Eau Claire property, and like, it's like unclear to me which is it all bread and butter, is it not all bread and butter, I have to do some more research there, but I'm just like wondering if there's like opportunities to work with the Vermont Land Trust to figure out like how much access is gonna be allowed or not allowed there. So that's like kind of where those two recommendations come from. And then like the Dopp and Scott properties are down there too. Unsure if those are part of bread and butter situation.
Scott is city owned,
Yes.
has a number of restrictions on it.
Dopp has.
Dopp is not publicly, it is by donation from Sarah before she passed away, it is permanently conserved, but it is not public. Other than an easement that she provided.
So potentially Scott could be studied for that.
Within it's a pretty tight box of what's allowed.
I admit that I haven't read all your easements, so thank you for clarifying.
It's not likely to be a Veterans 2.0, just to be clear on that.
Sorry, what'd you say?
It is not likely to be a Veterans 2.0 because it is pretty tight restrictions that the city agreed to on purchase of that one.
She got it.
And it's hard to access,
That too.
very hard. It's surrounded by private.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Just like looking at like, it was just thinking like from like a geographical standpoint and like size, but that's good to know.
Go through this program.
Cool. Okay, so we don't have all these listed. I just wanted to like remind you guys of the structure we're gonna be taking for these individual park and open space recommendations. So we're gonna have like them classified under like a built environment bucket and like a natural environment bucket. So that's where like this facilities and amenities and like education interpretation, like things will live. And then under here will be like water quality, stormwater, habitats, invasives, agricultural soils. So again,
For example, the advanced previews, we are recommending some more amenities at Hubbard, for example, kind of in this structure. So for each of the existing parks and open spaces, you'll see recommendations for improvements at each of the parks. And we were thinking along the same lines of amenitizing Hubbard, particularly around the bike path as that goes in, just in that corridor around the bike path primarily.
Since it looks like you're at the end of this list, there was one place that jumped out to me as missing.
Good.
In your analysis of either high or medium scale, the Quarry Hill Road area. So sort of behind the Staples Plaza has
So
400 or
for
500 homes in
For
it.
quick clarification, I lumped that in with the broader, that's why the city center area is a weird
Okay.
name, because I threw it into that, but I think it's not the same as Limekiln and Country Club Estates, but it has some of the same considerations as that, where it's the same kind of built structure, but it has a major barrier between city center area and the
Eastview.
west of 89.
Right,
And
and
it
it
was
will
2
have
years,
like,
though, that's gonna be a lot less, right?
yes, but
Yeah.
it's still a major crossing,
Sure,
so like physically, it's still gonna be, so it's not gonna be the playground in the city center won't serve people who live there.
Fair.
It's a good
Can
point.
you
I
go
mean,
back
maybe
one
it does
slide?
go into those like disconnected areas
That's it.
section.
Yeah, I really like that as a sub, like same with lime kilns, have a sub disconnected area, and it can be
Yeah.
a little bit of a call out, you know,
Well-
where it has some of the same characteristics, but it has these. You know, unique
Right,
context.
and similarly, it's very close to a college.
And
Yeah.
like the
Right,
country
that
But
makes
another
sense.
municipality.
Cause like, you know, for most of city center, I wouldn't say it's right next to country club, like the country club golf course. For the skiing, but like those people are, but you're not, I don't know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We also, one I guess I was thinking, I guess we might briefly mention it is on Fayette too, because we're kind of talking about putting potentially maybe some like new village center over there. Is that something that we should have as a pretty priority, like when we're thinking about it, around the village center by Fayette, maybe there needs to be start thinking ahead about where will be that park need to be. Because that, I mean, already with those orchard high density housing units, there's already decent dense already, it could become a lot more dense. By the Lowe's essentially, that area.
Wait, sorry, so we're like up here?
No, I think we're.
But yeah, so quarry, yeah, this.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we're down here, I'm so sorry. Gotcha.
I think, or
Oh, Corey.
Two things were being talked.
Sorry, yeah, so I'm at two different areas. Yeah,
The two
two
different
completely different
things.
areas.
This is what we were saying is the Quarry Hill,
Yeah.
East Terrace area that's separated from city center, even though it's similar, it's across the highway. Colin was talking about, we've been talking about this area, so from Fayette to effectively 189 as another sort of hub village, downtown-ish area.
There's not much there at the
I
moment.
think,
And
I
there's
think,
very little there.
city center part two.
and
Yes.
the answer is, yes, like you almost can't start thinking soon enough about how can we get park spaces.
Agreed.
In either of those locations, our feeling is like. I mean, you guys have a lot to do to manage growth in those areas, but getting parks in,
Mhm.
that's almost like a
I
big
think,
job of parks.
The
And-
city plan talks about how there are improvements that we can make to Shelburne Road, but it will always be a major north-south transportation route. And so when we think about parks, we can stitch it together somewhat, but the needs on the
East and west side.
on the west side won't be met entirely by, improved access to Szymanski and to Farrell. That it's disconnected enough that it's gonna need some amenities of its own.
Especially as.
What's the status of the football field at South Village?
It is, ongoing work with the HOA and the developer on reimagining what it'll be.
Yeah.
I think it's generally agreed upon by all parties that a soccer field is not really achieving what anybody wants. So everybody's been working together on this. To look at how to do something that better meets the needs of that area. 'Cause it was never gonna be a full-size one is the problem. So it's gonna be like a mini one,
Oh.
which
Okay.
Oh, so I know we're at time, but I just like that reminded me that like when we were talking to commoners, they were telling of us there was like a parcel that the city bought that was gonna be a soccer field that I emailed Adam about. But like, I feel like there are these like Kelsey and I have spoken a bunch about like these plans not recommending specific parcels for any purpose, but like I feel like there are these like exceptions. There's like the one by the Shelby Road Cemetery and there's that one by Common Road. So it's like, as the planning commission, like, do you guys like want us to call out those like few parcels that have been specifically mentioned to us by like throughout this process? Like, would that make your lives harder or easier as a group?
That one, why don't we have an offline conversation?
Okay, sorry.
Strategies with it, because it's really a unique thing where the council. Back in the mid-2000s, set aside the recreation impact fee specifically
Ah.
for a thing for one property, so it's a really one-off. But getting some recommendations about how it fits in the larger context might be useful.
Okay, great.
And I think in that case, if there are things we've heard about specific parcels that can be just information, like notes that we can provide to staff and planning and the committees, it doesn't have to be recommendations for the plan, but there are things that we've kind of heard about with individual parcels, I think that can be, valuable. Because there's so much engagement happening, we hear so much, but it's not all like part of the plan recommendations.
I think one thing that could be really helpful, like, maybe next time you're talking to a group, or at least with us, if we could have like the map in front of us, because this was actually a little hard, like, even though we know the city really quite well, like some of the names of the parks, or like which is the Geograph and which is the Garvey and where is that, and like who knows, because it's just a bunch of weeds where nobody's ever seen it. Like, I think it could be really helpful to have like a physical thing, so that like as we're looking at recommendations or talking about stuff, you can like reference, and maybe I'm just the only map.
No, thank you for that feedback. Yeah.
And that one has stayed the same. We've made a lot of updates to the population density map, for example, or housing density now especially, but that map, we can print it out and bring it to every single meeting.
Yeah, because it could be helpful, like even if you recollect them at the end of the meeting, but I think that could be like helpful.
Yeah, I'm even thinking like maybe we have like a stack of like 8.5 by 11s that we can pass to the public as they come to the meeting to provide.
Something like that.
Yeah. Thanks for the feedback. I'm sorry if this.
No, this has been a really great presentation. That's not a negative comment at all.
There's a lot to go through. There's a lot of parcels. It definitely helps to look at the map.
Yeah. Did you have other formal things, or do we want to open up?
That is
more?
the
We are done.
Okay. So if anyone in the room, commission or non, or online, has any questions or comments for CRO or just in general, we can make sure to do those now. I'm not seeing any in the room. I do see, it looks like Brian has his hand up. And I believe you are ready to go, Brian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I have a lot of comments and questions. I won't go through them now. I'll send them by email, but I just want to say thank you. I've been to well over 100 city meetings in the past 3 years, and I think this is like the best presentation I've seen yet. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm really encouraged. Like, I'm beyond ecstatic. It's really good. It has a really keen eye toward equity, which I think has been lacking historically here. And I absolutely love that. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah. I echo Ryan's comments. I think this was great. I'm glad we had the flexibility to keep going. So much great information.
Well, the team walks, there's a lot to critique, which is a good thing.
Do you have anything? You're just
Do you all know Adam?
We do not. Oh,
Adam is our spectacular recreation and parks director. Been here for the last couple of years. So all those amazing things that you're seeing all around the city is Adam and his team. Oh, yeah.
great job, Adam.
Thank you.
Sorry, we didn't recognize you at the
Ah,
beginning of all of this.
And it's not just here, I've heard lots of good things from other people.
Like,
Well, this is the first time Adam's seen all this too, so
Yep.
just to hear your preliminary thoughts later.
Great. Any other comments, questions, things feel like we want to see you next time, or?
Want to do the minutes? I wasn't here, so.
Okay, I think we're done.
Was it Ryan School?
Brian
That
did
was Brian.
just give
Yep.
his comment. That
He
was
said he's
great.
gonna provide some things by email.
Oh, got it,
Yeah,
okay,
Which is super helpful. I think.
okay, cool.
Okay, let's do the minutes. of,
Sorry, we're gonna step out and chat with Adam, but thank you guys so much for your 2 hours of time.
Thank you.
so minutes of September 24th, I move that we pass them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, minutes passed, unanimous. Anything else?
Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank